like to kick this whole thing off is for anybody that might not be familiar with your work yet or hasn't seen you or anything. We kind of just to give a little bit about how you got started in the industry. Was it something you knew you always wanted to do? Is it kind of fall into it? What was the deal?
I think that, damn, okay, I think it's something I always knew I wanted to do. When I was 6, I turned to my dad and I said that I wanted to be a famous opera singer.
Um,
And my family is not in this world at all. And he looked at me like I had like a million heads and was like, what? And he was like, okay, whatever you want to do. But I think it was because my nonna we used to sing Ave Maria all the time.
Mm.
So I think it went back to like my Italian roots of being connected to singing and opera.
yeah.
So I did, when I was younger, do a Canadian Children's Opera Company, and then I used to tour with an opera company whenever they need little kids. We used to do Carmen and all those kind of things. And then it slowly started to shift a bit more. I mean, I sang the national anthem a lot, and I think I always was like, oh man, like I would love to be a singer. But then music theater kind of got introduced to me,
Hmm.
which then I was like, oh, I get to actually like sing as a different person than myself. And I found that way more easy. I don't
Yeah.
know. And so I think I kind of fell into that's kind of how I fell into the acting side of things, because I was like, it's way easier to take on another role and have the perspective of being somebody else as opposed to creating how I personally feel.
Right.
And then as I've kind of aged, I've now come to a point where I'm like, no, it actually would be really interesting to speak about how I personally feel in whatever capacity I can share that with. But yeah, so I did music theater for a really long time and have a degree in music theater. And then kind of like started performing my own stuff and releasing my own stuff, but was kind of doing more of like a pop girly thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm moving forward in terms of maybe doing a little bit more indie. I'm hopefully having a single come out soonish, which I actually really love. But I've spent a lot of time down in LA working with a lot of different people, and it's actually really hard to release your own stuff. Like
Yeah.
way harder than someone being like I'm so happy to step into other people's roles. Like for example, The Way Home, like stepping into the character of Evelyn, I'm like
Right.
that makes me feel so freeing because it's someone else's story,
Right.
but
Right. Right.
I haven't quite mastered my own yet. So that's where I'm at.
I love that too because we're all just going through this thing we call life, trying to navigate where we're going to end up and all of our lessons that we've gathered and learned from throughout our whole experience. So, since starting so young on stage, do you ever feel like with particular characters throughout your career, do you ever feel like you've always kept some of those characters with you throughout your life and to where like in some certain instances you'd be like, "Oh, I bet she would do this," or "I bet she would do this."
That is a really interesting question. I do know that a lot of music theater songs, like I'd usually play the more of like the leads or the ingenue, who's like the
Hmm.
young, budding, always curious, looking for more kind of character. And I remember somebody that I was seeing at the time was like, why do you have like such a big spirit or like such a big energy? And I was like, I
Hmm.
think it's because these like hero or heroine songs are like something like from Pretty Women. What's the one that she sings? Astonishing.
Right.
Or The Little Mermaid, like Part of Your World, or Newsies, Watch What Happens. Like it's all of these huge pieces where this small woman gets to have this turning point where they get to sing so like big about how they want to move forward in their life and how they want to create change. So I think that that has like influenced my spirit almost in terms of
Mm.
constantly seeking more almost.
Hmm.
Like I feel like I'm constantly going through the journey of like what's it called? Coming of age, even
Yeah.
though I should
Right.
be of age, but like I just am not there yet. I don't
I
know.
get that.
But then I have had characters too that have stuck with me for a while in the wrong ways and needing to shed them
Mm.
because they kind of pulled out parts of myself that I wasn't quite happy about. And going through that journey is also tricky as well. So it's interesting.